Welcome to Whip It Good with Jimmy Hack. Now, I've been working in the golf industry since a teenager. I've worked all over the US. I've actually worked at 14 different golf clubs. Now, at these places, I meet great people, great golfers that I've basically built a network around to help my Orange Whip business, but also just getting a chance to get involved more in the golf world. So, all these places, I've had all these great connections, and fortunately, I've kept in touch with a lot of them, and it's allowed me to branch out and get more involved in everything that I'm looking to be, taking part in. Well, today we got a cool guy. We got Tom Gardner. Tommy and I met at the Edgartown Golf Club on Martha's Vineyard in May of 2001. Now, that was my first real full-on teaching gig. And I remember the first day I'm getting to meet everybody at the club. I met Tommy that day. Tommy, do you remember that moment when we were connecting at the first time at Edgartown?
Yeah, yeah, I do. Kind of my first foray into the golf business as well. And never thought on that first day that here we are 20 plus years later, both have kind of found our own way in the golf business and stayed in touch and glad to be able to do things like this.
Now you were about what, 22, 23 at that time?
Yeah, yeah, I think I was 22.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 10 years older than you, and I remember meeting you, and you, like you said, you were just trying to get into the golf business and were willing to do about anything. And you had moved to the island and were checking different golf courses, and obviously probably trying to work in the golf shop or the with the bag storage and that. But what ended up happening is we got you going at Edgartown working on the maintenance staff, and so your early days were really the let's call it the grassroots of a golf course.
Yeah, and looking back on it, it was I was glad to have that side of the business under my belt, because even to this very day, being a director of golf, that kind of keyed me into the agronomy side of the business. And I think it's really sparked an interest there where, I have lengthy conversations with the superintendents I've worked with over the years, and stay, pretty involved, at least from a director of golf standpoint, in knowing and understanding the agronomy side of the business. So, uh, didn't really know it at the time, but a pretty good introduction into the business, and actually, has helped me more than I ever thought it would.
Well, and I don't know if I mentioned, but Tom's the director of golf at Bel-Air Country Club in Los Angeles, which is a tremendous place. So yeah, that's got to be a great connection because they demand the membership at all these clubs like that, especially demand a high quality conditioned golf course. So you having a background and an experience in it, yeah, I can only imagine has tremendously helped you with that connection and also the connection the members will have. They're going to have questions like, hey, why is Green's top dress today? Or why are they aerated? And you would have a better background to explain that. So that's been a great experience, I got to imagine.
Yeah, and most importantly, it got me access to be able to play and practice at Edgartown, which was kind of the whole goal at that point in my career. And met a bunch of good people. For those that have been to Martha's Vineyard, it's just an unbelievable place in the summer, and had five great seasons there.
Yeah, and actually, so we would both work till 3 to 4 p.m. or 3 or 4 p.m. we'd wind down. And if you know Edgartown Golf Club in the summer from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., it's one of the least busy golf courses you'll ever see. I mean, it's kind of amazing how, I mean, they get some play, but it's not packed. Then at 4:30, they allow the island residents who live there to have a special or a different membership. Mark Hess, who's the general manager of the club, calls them the Great Unwashed because it's just a lot of local guys. It's a lot of guys who they're out fishing, they're painters, they're yard work guys. They do all of the stuff that needs to be done on the island. So at 4:30, it gets to be the busiest place you could imagine. What Tommy and I would do is about 4:15, Tom, I, and Pete Lally, a great friend of ours, would go play right ahead of the big group of the island residents. And pretty much every day, it seemed like we would go out there and tee it up. And like you said, it's just a great venue for a beautiful seaside golf course. The evenings are tremendous out there. So we play golf till dark, most often. And I look fondly upon those days, and I think my game greatly improved at that moment as well.
Yeah, no, those are fun evenings. You and I kind of built our relationship, in those early years. Pete Lally, who's unfortunately no longer with us, was a really good player, and we had some great matches out there. I think between the three of us, we all at one point in time held the course record at Edgartown. So a lot of fun competition, beautiful setting, and yeah, just a point in my life where early 20s, not a ton of responsibility. Just loved the game of golf, and it was a pretty special time for me.
Well, and we would compete a lot. You and I would go off island, which is a job in itself, just to get off island, get a vehicle off to go play in the Massachusetts Open. We'd play in the Maine Open, play in the New Hampshire Open, which coincidentally is your home area. You're from Keene, New Hampshire. So we got to go play in a lot of these New England events. And that was fun too, to compete and play. And I often think about there's one moment we played in the Cape Cod Open, which was always in late May or early June. It was always cold and wet and tough. Well, we were getting to the course, getting warmed up, and I went and checked in for us both. And again, I was probably fairly broke at the time, and I did not pay for your skins, which I should have paid for your skins, because in that particular round, you hold out on a par four with a wedge, which would have probably been 500 to $750. And you go, Jimmy, you did put in money for my skins, right? And I go, oh man, I'm sorry.
I tell people that story just about every time I play in a Southern Cal section event. There's an option to get in the skins. I think I tell that story probably two or three times a year because, like you said, we didn't have a whole lot of cash to scrape together. So $500 or $700 would have been a windfall for me. But I don't hold it against you, Jimmy.
That's tremendous. So you worked there for 5 years, and then I had been going out to the desert to work at the Plantation Golf Club, and you got together with myself, Mark Hess, and Tony Meyer, and said, I'd really like to get out to the desert. So you ended up working in the desert for 1 or 2 years, I believe, at Mission Hills.
Yeah, 2 seasons at Mission Hills. Um, Once again, I got out to the desert, and was searching around for an opportunity. I ended up starting at Mission Hills, working the valet there. Once again, got my foot in the door to be able to play and practice, which was still kind of one of my primary goals at that time, trying to play and compete. And a beautiful practice facility. They have three golf courses there, so plenty of opportunity to play. Second year, I got into the golf shop, and worked there. And so I remember, it wasn't all that much more complicated than Tony Meyer, who you just mentioned. He goes, why do you go to Florida? And I don't know. He goes, Palm Springs is way better than Florida. I said, all right, I'll go to Palm Springs. So, it was a point in my life when, all my belongings had to fit in the back of my truck in order to make the trip. So it was pretty simple at that point in time, and not a lot holding me down. So I went out to the desert, and I've been in California now just over 20 years. So never thought it would be home, but here I am.
Wow. And it's funny you talk about the truck. The truck he's talking about was affectionately called Old Blue. And what was it, a Dodge? I can't remember what kind of
Yeah, it
truck.
was a Dodge Dakota.
Yeah.
It's a Dodge Dakota. I think I bought it with 230,000 miles on it. Drove it to San Diego and back. Drove it to Florida for three seasons down to Florida there and back, and then out to Palm Springs once, and then finally retired it. But I
Yeah.
made it.
Hey, you know what I think about is you should try to find that version and have it redone. Like, how people take old vehicles and clean them up and make it look really sharp. That'd be a fun project for.
Yeah, I don't think you could clean that thing up enough for it to be good.
So when you were at Mission Hills and then you saw a job opening at Bel-Air Country Club, and I was just thinking about this and kind of giggling. When you had your first interview with Dave POTUS, do you remember much about that?
Yeah, um, you know, I think everyone that would look back at some point in their career where they felt a little lucky, right place, right time, and things just went that way. So I was dating a gal who was moving to Los Angeles. I was getting a little tired of the back and forth from Palm Springs to Martha's Vineyard, and felt like it's time to kind of do something else in my career. I sent an application to just about every club in the greater Los Angeles area. Happened to land on Dave POTUS, who is the director of golf at Bel-Air. Landed on his desk a couple days after one of his assistants had given notice. He called me up, and I was happened to be driving to Los Angeles, not to visit my girlfriend, not for a job interview. To answer the phone, I'm sitting in traffic, and he introduces himself, says, "Yeah, I got your application. I want to meet you. Can you come in tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." I was blown away to have an opportunity, and but I was very ill prepared from a clothing and dress standpoint. I think, I had jeans and a t-shirt and, so scrambled around, and I, once again, didn't have a lot of money. So went to, a Macy's or something like that, and got a pair of pants and a pair of loafers and a golf shirt, and went into the interview. And I get halfway through the interview, and Dave looks at me and he goes, "Tom, can I ask you, do you ever think about wearing a shirt and tie into an interview?" And my face probably turned all sorts of, shades of red. And I explained that, he kind of caught me in the middle of coming on a trip, and so I cobbled together what I could. But the thing I really remember about that, Um, I had played Bel-Air a couple months before, and had met Dave on a Monday with a guy, a Bel-Air member um, who played at Edgartown in the summers, and it kind of made that connection. Mark, who you mentioned, the general manager, put us together. So I played golf with this gentleman, Cliff Allman, who actually I still give lessons to this day.
Awesome.
Um, and played Bel-Air, met Dave briefly, and we're walking out. So to go back to the interview, we're walking out of the interview, and I knew I had bombed it. And we're looking out over the golf course from this room in the clubhouse, and I go, "Yeah, what a course! It was such a pleasure to play." And Dave looked at me like, "What?" And he's like, "You played here?" And I said, "Yeah, I played here a couple months ago with Mr. Allman, and I actually met you briefly." And you could see a light bulb go off in Dave, that I had a member reference, and all that stuff. So I ended up getting the job. But if I hadn't made that comment, I'm pretty sure that I would have never, I would have never worked here, and my career could have gone in, 100 different directions.
Wow. No, I believe that. That's a great story. Hey,
Yeah.
what's interesting too is I mean, ever since I met you and we played a ton of golf on the Vineyard, you were a great player and you just kept getting better. And you always hit it a long ways. I mean, that was always impressive. But I really believe from knowing you 20 plus years that when you started working with Dave POTUS at Bel-Air, working with him, learning more about the ins and outs of the game, that's really when I think your game went from here to up there. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I would. I think Dave was, he took the game very seriously. He took competing very seriously. He took the maintenance of one's game, very seriously. And I really, probably the first time that I consistently, sought out and got instruction from a pro here in the LA area, who was a great teacher, and not only, kind of cleaned up the fundamentals of my golf swing, but also kind of keyed me into, some of the things that I should look for as I start to give more lessons. This gentleman's name is Paul Parlane. He moved to he's a New Zealand guy, moved back home. So I've kind of lost touch with him, but fantastic instructor, really kind of helped, my game get a lot better and, and piqued my curiosity from a teaching standpoint as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. From a teaching standpoint, you couldn't do better than with Dave Poetis, who's I grew up in North Dakota, as you know, but Dave was a Minnesota guy and a legend up there, and then he moved to LA and became a legend there. So yeah, that was a great connection. Hey, tell us a little bit about when you were working at Bel-Air. There, you were in the Southern California section, and you won the qualifier for the LA Open, the PGA Tour event. Tell us a little bit about that, like who you played a practice round with, and actually, start with that. I think you played with another New Englander. I think you played with Keegan Bradley. Is that right?
I did. So, um, I qualified. We had a 1 day Southern California section at the time. We had a 1 day qualifier for the three events, LA, Torrey, and the desert. Um, and so we had a 1 day qualifier. And the funny thing is I was going on a trip with my then girlfriend, now wife, and so I knew that I really didn't have I didn't really have any expectations of winning the qualifier, but I also knew I had a trip booked for the same time that the LA Open would be. So I kind of thought, maybe I go out there and play well and make a little money, have some spending money on my trip. So I went out there and I played a solid round of golf. I got in and I was tied. I was one of the last groups in. I was tied for the lead. I ended up having a playoff with another guy, another Southern Cal pro. Ended up winning on the first playoff hole, and I was driving home, and I remember specifically having to call my girlfriend, who's not a golfer, doesn't know much about golf. And there was, I mean, unbelievable, kind of for me, astonishment that I had just done it. Excitement, nerves that I was going to, play in a PGA Tour event. And I call her up and I said, "Listen, we have to reschedule our trip." And she was like, "No," like, she couldn't believe it. Why would we do that? And I said, "Well, I just qualified, for a PGA Tour event." And she goes, "Is that good?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And so I explained it a little bit more, and she kind of saw, kind of understood the gravity of the moment. So anyway, fast forward a couple weeks. It's the Sunday before LA Open week. I'm playing out here. Club, everyone at the club knows that I qualified, and it's a big deal. People are, giving me a lot of support. I end up playing with Bob Rotella out here at the club on Sunday, and he's a New Englander. I'm a New Englander. He works with Keegan Bradley, also a New Englander, and so he, I think Keegan had just won the PGA Championship. I could get that wrong, but anyway, Keegan was a pretty big, it was a pretty big name on tour. Not that he still isn't. So Bob gets on the phone. I remember I was playing with the club president. Bob Rotella whips out his phone, which is kind of a no-no, on the ninth hole, and calls up Keegan. Says, "I got this guy from New Hampshire here. You got to play a practice round with him." So, long story short, I played with Keegan. I played with, in that same group was Johnny Vegas and Jamie Lovemark. And all three of those guys hit the ball, I mean, 320, 330. And, I'm back there at a, 280, 290. I played 12 holes with them, and bowed out and went and, raided the equipment trailers while I still could. But a fun way to start the week.
Well, then also talking about equipment, I mean, obviously at this point, soft spikes are everywhere, but you could wear metal spikes. Did you have a chance to choose to wear metal spikes?
Yeah, so I was that Monday I went over to Riviera and I was like a kid in a candy store. And I'm walking out of the locker room, and another player walks by, and you hear the click click of metal spikes, and it dawned on me that you could still wear metal spikes out here. I hadn't worn metal spikes in 10 years probably. And so when immediately turned around, went back into the locker room, saw the locker room attendant, said, "Hey, can I get some metal spikes in here?" He goes, "Do you want the short ones or the long ones?" I said, "Give me the long ones." So I played that week. I think I still have them somewhere in a box, the metal spikes, but played with metal spikes that week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, what else you told me, which was a great story, was about you were leaving the driving range, getting ready for the first round, and at Riviera, you got to walk up a hill to get to the first tee. Was it Jerry West that you ran into on the way?
Yeah, so Jerry West was a longtime member at Bel-Air. Really, really good player in his own right. And he happened to be kind of the honorary chairman of it was the Northern Trust, was the title sponsor. And Jerry was the honorary chairman of it, and we knew each other just through Bel-Air, and it was a windy day, and the first tee was kind of running behind, so I'd start warming up, and then I'd stop, and then I'd start again, and I was obviously very nervous, and finally they go, "All right, it's time to go." And so I walk by Jerry, and he looks at me, and he goes, "You're going up?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Whatever you do, don't top it in the ditch."
And there is kind of a ditch off that first tee.
Yeah. Oh man.
I bet you that helped a little bit. Comfort, slow. I mean, like,
Well, I don't know. I mean, at the time I was pretty nervous, but I put a swing on it that was probably about as slow as I've swung in my life, and made contact, and I think I even hit the fairway.
oh, that's awesome. Hey, I remember even watching that on TV, and that you got a little bit of coverage here and there, and they made a joke that you had to work the morning shift at Bel Air and then race over for your afternoon tea time.
Yeah. So Lance Barrow, who produced golf for CBS, he's an honorary or full member here now, but at the time he would when he would come to LA, or when the tour would come to LA, Lance was always around. He'd, come and kind of have lunch every day and hang out, and really loved this place. And so when he found out that I qualified, he went out of his way to give me some airtime. So I was on TV probably 4 or 5 times, and I didn't play in the Wednesday Pro Am, so I was pretty much shut out of the facility. I could have gone there and hit balls, but the Wednesday of the LA Open or the Genesis or Northern Trust, we have a big day here at the club. It's Traditions Day, and it's a golf tournament into a coat and tie dinner, and it's really a big deal. So it's a big day here at the club. So being shut out of being able to go over to Rib and do anything productive, Dave was like, "You're working that Wednesday." So I did work the day before the tournament, and they did mention that on TV. So it's kind of a funny moment.
Hey, I got a quick funny story to tell you. I was just at an Oregon State golf reunion about a month ago, and I was talking to a guy who's probably 4 years older than me, and he played for the Beavers mid '80s. Well, they had a coach named Perry Overstreet, and Perry's kind of a not a very organized guy. And they're going to LA to play in UCLA's tournament or whomever, but they had a special place that they were going to go play. So they land at the airport, get the van, load up the bags, they drive. They go to Bel-Air parking lot, Bel-Air Country Club parking lot, unload the bags, but realize they left one bag at the airport. They forgot to get it. So they're dropped off. So this Perry Overstreet, the coach, takes off with the van to go back and get the bag and leaves these guys in Bel-Air Country Club parking lot. And they're kind of scruffy misfits from the Pacific Northwest, long hair, probably got some beards. Well, they're just standing in the parking lot, and out walks Eddie Merrins, and he's walking toward him, and he's all prim and proper, and everything is tucked in, buckled, everything's perfect. And he walks up and he goes, "Hello, gentlemen. What can I help you with?" He goes, "Oh, the guys go, "Oh, we're playing here today." And he goes, "Well, really? I'm not aware of that." And so through some talking and a phone, and there's no cell phones at this point, so I think Eddie had called, found out that they were supposed to be at Riviera. And this coach had knew somebody who got him onto Riviera, but he dropped them at the wrong course. But what these my buddies who I was just talking to about it said, Eddie, I don't know if this is still there, but on the lower part of the parking lot or down low, there's a chipping green or a short game area, and he let the guys hang out there. Does that still exist, that area?
No, no, there's some tennis courts down there. But probably in that time, there was a short game area there. But that sounds I knew in some way that Little Pro was going to find a way to make it at least salvage the moment. He was a true ambassador for the game.
Oh, that's what reminded me was because that's the swinging the bridge right there behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, so you were at Bel-Air for a number of years as the assistant pro, and this is when you played the LA Open and a Buy.com event. But then you did go become first assistant at LA Country Club, and then shortly thereafter became the director of golf in a very prominent time where you guys had the Walker Cup, you had the US Open. So tell us a little bit about that experience, just kind of transferring over. Was it a huge, major change for you? Was it comfortable? What was that like a bit for you?
Yeah, so I was here for almost 8 years as an assistant, and was kind of hoping to be the number two here, and it didn't look like it was going to happen. And so had an opportunity to be the number two at LACC. Jumped on it. Didn't wanted to finish out my time here in LA and move on to get my own job from some club, good club in LA, and LACC provided that. Got there, to be honest, the clubs are about 3 miles away, but I didn't really know much about it. And so when I got there, it took a little bit of getting used to. It was a big club, 1,500 members, 36 holes, tons of events, and just a ton going on. So, but a little different than here. About 9 months into my time there, the director of golf, Jim Schaefer, took an opportunity up in Portland at Waverly, which left a vacancy for that position. I ended up running the golf operation in an interim period of about 6 months. Was hired, uh, and was thrilled, that to get my first job, my first director of golf job, and at a club like LACC, and then to be honest, was probably a little underprepared for the opportunity, and worked really hard over the next 5 years building a team, kind of getting up to speed on what it takes to run an operation of that size and with that much going on. um, and yeah, we had the Walker Cup in 2017, which I still think the Walker Cup, and I'm actually hosting the Curtis Cup this June here at Bel-Air,
Wow.
which is almost a mirror image of the Walker Cup, except for the ladies. And those two events are just so special. They're small, intimate. You're seeing the future of the game in a lot of instances. And then and then a few years later, we hosted the U.S. Open, for the first time for LACC to host a U.S. Open, and just unbelievable experience for me personally. Leading up to the event, the USGA was unbelievably inclusive, involving myself, the superintendent, in the lead up. And we walked the course probably a dozen times over 2 years, and looked at mow lines and hole locations, and just talked a lot about how the course plays. It was a great experience. And then kind of the cherry on top was the Monday of week of the Open. They asked me if they needed if it was needed if I play as a non-competing marker. It ended up being an odd number made the cut, so I played as a marker on Saturday and Sunday, which kind of, like I said, was the cherry on top of a pretty special week for me.
That's awesome. No, that's yeah, what an experience. And you're so involved in the preparation for it too. So it even added. It wasn't like it was over at Torrey Pines or something and you had to drive down. You know, it was you were fully invested and involved with everything to develop for this US Open. So man, that what a great experience. And I'm sure the nerves were there, even though you're a non-participant, you're still playing, you're still out
Yeah.
there on the course.
There's still there's still 25,000 people out there watching you play, so you want to hit some good shots for them.
What time to do this for you? We're winding down here, but based on your experiences at the LA Open, playing in the US Open, playing in the Buy.com event, what would you say, what kind of advice or thoughts would you give to a golfer who does happen to get in those events? Do you have any stuff you've learned from your playing days, from Dave Potus? Like, what kind of thoughts would you have when you're in a bigger moment than you're used to being into?
It's um whether it's playing in a PGA Tour event or or being in a shootout at a pro scratch event. We all from time to time, and my members are no different. We work ourselves into a situation that we're maybe a little uncomfortable, not used to. Um, there's a couple things that have been said to me, and I'm not going to take credit for them, but I like to kind of think about to help calm me a little bit. One's serious, one's kind of funny. Uh, First one's pressures of privilege, right? So if you're feeling pressure, you've done something right in order to be in that moment to feel that pressure. So don't shy away from it, and just step up and do it. The other one was that Saturday morning at the U.S. Open when I was first off. I played with Ryan Fox. Bob Ford is the starter he's been doing the U.S. Opens for a while, and so we're standing on the putting green, and I don't know if he sensed. He probably knew I was a little nervous, and he said, "Tom, you know what? Someone gave me some pretty sage advice one time in a situation like this." And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" He said, "Swing hard. You may just hit it." So I kind of, try to try to think back of a couple funny things and a couple serious things that, if you're feeling pressure, you probably did something well in order to be there. So don't shy away and just go get it.
That's awesome. Great advice from a great pro, and I can even put you and a Bob Ford in the similar category. Great guys who've worked a long ways to come from not much to a lot in a great way. So very proud to know you. Proud to have been friends so long. So thank you for doing this morning, and look forward to seeing you and teeing it up again someday.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jimmy.
All right, Tommy. Take care. Have a great day, and I'll let you know when I'm out that way.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
All
See
right. See you.